Rich, one of the topics that you had on Facebook is called Just a Thought.
Right.
Explain that real quick.
Well, I will. As you may know, there was a period of time where I put 2 words every day on Facebook. I called it 2 Words for Today. And after coming up with 146 2-word slogans, I ran out. So I wanted to keep the process of provoking thinking going. So I came up with the idea of, how about if we just put up a thought? So I established a new process called Just a Thought. And I think so far I've come up with probably maybe 30 or 40 of them so far. And it's an ongoing process. And typically the way that it works in the morning, I usually get up between anywhere from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, more closer to 4 o'clock. And I put on Christian television. David Jeremiah, Andrew Womack, and Doug Batchelor are really good teachers. And as I'm listening to what they're teaching, I come up with these thoughts. So I have a pad next to me, and I quickly write them down, and then I go in and put them on Facebook. So I've been enjoying doing it, and obviously some people are commenting about it. So, it's going okay. That's how it started.
One of the Just the Thoughts that kind of jumped out at me was the one you wrote in early April, and it's called Discouragement Requires Permission.
Right.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I was realizing that any one of these thoughts comes from my thinking and how it has affected me. And I realized that the only person that can really discourage me is me. So I have to either deny discouragement or accept it. And I found that what happens with all of us is if we choose to be discouraged, it's because that's a choice we're making. You could also choose not to be discouraged. So I'm not giving myself permission to be discouraged. I don't, as you know, I believe in being extremely positive and keeping things going forward in my life. I'll tell you something else that came up that is interesting that I thought. When we left the men's group on Wednesday night, one of the guys came up to me, and I had told him that I always thought he was very strong. I said, you really have a lot of... So after him digesting that over a number of weeks, he says to me, Rich, before you leave, why do you say I'm so strong? So I said, you're extremely authentic, you're straightforward and honest. And I said, a lot of people have a challenge doing that. Now, this is where it got good. I'm on my way out the door. So this is what I left him with. I says, imagine if when you go to sleep tonight, you wake up tomorrow and you can't remember anything. And you have the opportunity to choose your life exactly the way you want it to be and how you want to be. How will you do that? And then I left. But think about that, because when it comes, and this goes along with discouragement, when it comes to where we're headed, what people have a tendency to do is to allow so much of the past affect what they believe they could do in the future. And I think if you could get rid of that, it makes a big difference on where you could take yourself. I really do. It goes along with my one of the things I say, that anything is possible and everything could work. Prove it and then do it.
Let's go back in time.
Okay.
All right. Vietnam.
Yes.
Would this same statement apply as a soldier?
It most certainly did. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you decided to go back there, because one of the things that I remember about, first of all, I had no idea before I went over to Vietnam what was going on. Mm-hmm. I was drafted, and the way that we were raised, you obey the government. I got into the Army. I did very well in basic training and all that, as you know. And when I got over to Vietnam, on the very first mission we had, the very first time out, we were probably less than a mile away from base camp, and a sniper killed one of one of the soldiers. Now, so I mean, this is right at the very beginning. And I was determined at that point in time that I'm going to make it through this no matter what. I wasn't going to, I wasn't going to create this what if attitude. And, no, all I did in that case is I made up my mind that I wasn't going to let it affect me negatively. And it never did. And I didn't see as much action as some of the other soldiers saw, but I was in the infantry. We did have combat, and when I say that I wasn't going to let it affect me, it really I don't think it did, because I can't remember a lot of what happened. I just really wanted to put it behind me. So I just refused to let it get me down. My goal in Vietnam was to come home. That's what my goal was. And I wasn't going to let anything stop me. And as a result, I was an extremely good soldier. I had a lot of situations where we went out on patrols and ambushes. I would be the point guy, the guy that went first, because I was so careful and stuff. And I always thought that, no, it's going to be okay. I'm going to make it. And with the grace of God and a lot of prayer from my mother, here I am.
So how can we look at discouragement? Do we look at discouragement as an individual, as a person?
Well, right? I would have to answer the question this way. I have to answer that personally. When have I ever been discouraged? Okay. And honestly, I don't remember being discouraged. I feel that God gave me a gift. Okay. I could remember there were times in my life. Remember, I don't have a lot of education. I barely made it out of high school. And throughout my entire career, when negative things were happening, they were happening to other people. They were never happening to me. Other people were losing their jobs. I wasn't. I got promoted. Others didn't. And I always believed that the outcome would be favorable. So I think discouragement is it is self-imposed. Now, the question is, why do we get discouraged? Part of the reason that I believe people could get discouraged is what they believe that other people are going to tell them. And, it's really interesting. I had people tell me when I was going through high school and I was playing football as a good quarterback, and I had some opportunities where there were a couple of small colleges, interested in me. And I had people saying, Rich, if you don't go to college, you're not going to amount to anything. And as a matter of fact, more people were of that nature than anybody giving me positive support, except for one person. My Uncle Rudy, who was a truck driver, he said to me, and I'll never forget this, he said, Richie, you don't have to worry about anything. With your personality, you're unstoppable. That's what I chose to remember. And that's what I believed. I said, if he's, so what we do with discouragement is we allow it in. Now, I had probably a ratio of 5-to-1, 5 people telling me discouraging things, 1 person being favorable. I went with the 1. We all have that benefit. And it also has a determination of how we feel about ourselves, our self-image. Now, interesting enough, I got a lot of positive feedback through athletics. I could remember I played Pop Warner football. I was a quarterback then. And I could remember the first year that we were in high school, JV football, 8th grade, 7th and 8th grade. And we're in this big room and the coach says, how many people want to be a tackle? And people, when he said, how many people want to be an end? I didn't, it's never self-centered, if you know what I mean. So I said, I don't want to say I'm going to be a quarterback. I'll be an end. So he said, put your hand down. You're the quarterback. Okay, that really happened. So what happened then is if he said, I'm the quarterback, I'm the quarterback. Okay? So it was through sports that I got a lot of positive affirmation. And that's what I decided to keep. I could remember being in high school, I could remember taking a business course because I was really poor academically, and I was in typing. And the typing teacher was critical of me through sports in some way. And I'll never, I was in 8th grade at the time. And I never forget, in 8th grade, telling her in a nice way, in a respectful way, that she really didn't understand what she was talking about because I was getting more out of playing football than anything else I did. I actually took that stand. Okay? What did that say about my self-image? What does it say about, giving myself permission to feel good about myself as opposed to being defeated? Mm-hmm. And I think we all have that. We all do something good. I don't care who you are, even if you do something good, bad, for the wrong reasons, but you do it good, there's talent there. And we need to be able to understand how to take that and use it in a positive way.
So when you have the discouragement, it can be either internal or external.
Right.
And I think it's probably, for most people anyway, a little bit easier to fight it off if it's an external influence. What tools would you convey to someone who has more of that discouragement coming internally and wants to believe something different but has trouble backing away from that?
Number of things you could do. First of all, I really do believe in prayer. Mm-hmm. I really know that helps. But so much of it is really determined by yourself. Mm-hmm. In other words, when you ask about a tool, where does confidence come from? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is a good way, because when we have a high level of confidence, mm-hmm. we don't have low self-esteem. And I realized by experience mm-hmm. how to get confidence mm-hmm. when I didn't have it. Mm-hmm. And this is what I did. I faked it. Mm-hmm. I've been in situations where I didn't want to be intimidated. I wanted to appear confident. And I was scared stiff. You know what I did? Mm-hmm. I appeared confident. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you where you could get it from. Mm-hmm. Watch actors. What do actors do? Mm-hmm. They have a life and then they act. And it is in that acting that they develop a character that we believe. Mm-hmm. What's the difference? Mm-hmm. We have that same opportunity. And when you act out something to the point where it becomes intuitive to you, you change your character for good, for bad, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But you have to be able to be willing to understand what it is that is causing you to feel negative about yourself and be willing to confront something to overcome it. Mm-hmm. That's what it's going to take. Mm. So it's the reality check that we do within ourselves that's really important. Let's not lie to ourselves. Make sense?
Yes, it does.
But that choice that you made about faking it, is that a temporary thing?
It will be if you don't continue to practice it. Mm. It's like anything else. Okay? I was the kicker. I kicked off and I kicked field goals. I was the kicker in football. How did I become a kicker? My older brother and I decided that we would go to the ball field and attempt to kick extra points. He would hold, I would kick, And you know what happened? We started to get pretty good at it. And the more we did it, the better we got. And guess what? One of the things that happened to me, and this is no big deal today, but when I was in high school, I was in the 11th grade, and I kicked a field goal. I kicked a 37-yard field goal, and it made the New York Times in 1962. Really? Wow. Now, that was a big deal. Sure. But why did that happen? If you would have known the hundreds and hundreds of kicks that we did my brother and I on a Sunday afternoon, that's how you do it. It's the same thing with the person we are. Like I said earlier before we started recording, when I said to the gentleman at the men's group, if we could erase the past and start off tomorrow remembering nothing and deciding how we want to shape and mold and develop who we are, how would you do it? Mm. Well, number one, you identify what it is. What attributes do we want to demonstrate that we could be proud of, that we feel good about ourselves? we all know what they are. Nobody doesn't know. Well, if you know what they are, then the next question is, what do we have to do to refine them? Practice. Practice. Yeah.
That's awesome.
You know, one of the things I've shared is that when I go to the grocery store, it's a little thing, but it's practice. I park my car, I pick up one of those little carts, and I look. And I'm looking to see if there is somebody that needs help, whether it's putting their groceries in. And every now and then I'll find somebody with a walker or something, and I will go up to them and say, can I help you with anything? That's practice. Okay? Most of the times they don't want the help. They want to remain independent. I do the same thing in the store. If I see somebody, a lady reaching to get something at a high shelf in there, excuse me, I'll get it for you. Practice. So we have to identify the attributes that are important to us that we want to refine, and then we have to practice. That's it. And that's what I really do. And I've been practicing for almost 80 years now.
That's an interesting point to kind of piggyback off of what Gary was saying about the tools internally and externally. Well, I've encountered something last night with a brother. He was interested in praying with his sister, right?
Okay.
A beautiful act, right?
Yeah.
A beautiful thing to do. The sister actually went on somewhere else, and he looked kind of like, man, I really wanted to do something. So I said, I'm here. Just pray with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
That's beautiful.
you know,
Yeah.
so the thing is when someone is the peripheral outside, recognizing that someone is discouraged, I think we can be a benefit to someone as well, not to allow that permission to be, how can I say it, entered in, or the discouragement, influence. There you go.
Right.
There you go.
No, there's a couple of things that are really great about that. First of all, what you did is you did an act of service for them. Okay, and that, to me, there's more to it than just making them feel good. I mean, it gives them, there's a certain level of reassurance that goes along with that. That's very, very valuable. And, so much, in my opinion, of what we recognize that is going on beyond ourselves that we could participate in to make it better, to me, is the key to getting the culture in this country where we want it to be. I could sit here and be critical of a lot of things that are going on today that all of us can. But I would rather say, what did I do yesterday when I was in the parking lot that somebody felt better? I had another situation that happened just 2 days ago. I've been cutting this path between my property and a neighbor's property who I barely know, hardly ever see this person. And the path that I was cutting was more on her property than it was on my property. And I've been doing this for a couple of weeks. So I'm thinking, I guess they're okay with it. I was out there 2 days ago, and she comes walking out. I never even knew her before. And it was very interesting because she felt uneasy. I could see that she was bothered by having to address the situation. So she said, I wish you wouldn't cut the path there. And so I guess she was expecting an argument. So I said, oh, I'm terribly sorry. I said, I will do whatever makes you happy. What would you like me to do? And I could see that I changed her demeanor because she might have been expecting like, oh, no, this is my property. No, I didn't want, she's my neighbor. So I went on, and it turns out that she had lost her mother a couple of years ago, and she was trying to maintain this place. Like, they have about 15 acres, and it takes a lot of care. So I told her, I said, just so you know, I have a snowplow, and I got my blade. I said, anytime that I could cut your grass or mow your cut the grass or plow the driveway, no charge. I'll be happy to help you. Well, here's what I know. I remember what she looked like walking up to me, and I remember how she probably felt when she left. And no one else knows that. I didn't tell that story to anybody, but she knows it. So to me, that's what you do.
So to go back to a thought, and I love that story, is a person that deals with confidence issues, right?
Yep.
And discouragement. How do we make it to a point where they know that discouragement is on the way? You know, how can I explain
That discouragement is being overcome, or
it's been invited?
oh, okay. In other words,
Yeah.
we know. It happens to us all the time. I guarantee that you're going to have a conversation with someone today, and they're going to anticipate that something bad is going to happen because of something in the past. I don't know what it's going to be, but I almost guarantee you that will happen. Even it may happen with your kids, it may happen with your spouse, but we have a tendency that I got a really good idea, and then someone says, well, let me tell you why that won't work. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because what they're doing is they're measuring the future with something from the past. So we have to be able to recognize when that is happening. And, to me, I developed, you asked me how I was when I got out of the car today, and I said, perfect. Okay. I'm going to say one of two things when people ask me how I am. Always people say, hey, how you doing? I either say the best or perfect, no matter how I feel. I don't care. Because you know what? That's a nice message. I've had people, when I say the best, I've had people actually stop, their body language change. And then they would say, I guess I'm second best. That catches them. Well, to me, if we did enough of that, we would start catching society, And all we could do is what we could do personally.
I think assumptions is another. It's kind of like going to the past. The past kind of dictates how a person is going to feel moving in the future. So if you are a person that's constantly assuming an outcome or whatnot, you've already allowed discouragement to be permissible in your actions or anything, and that lets you know how powerful discouraged.
Well, doubt belongs to the devil.
I agree.
Okay, and this is what happens. We doubt. Why do you doubt? Okay, I may want to try something where there's a possibility it might not work. Yeah. That's the reality. So do I focus on why it won't work? Or do I focus on how to make it work? That's the choice you have. And, it's interesting if you want, and it could be either way you could win, because if you could focus on why it won't work, you're going to be able to identify the attributes involved in not making it work. And if that's the case, fix it. You see what I mean? It all depends on where you're willing to draw the line. As long as you don't give in, you continue to win. But once you stop trying, the result doesn't come. It takes continuous effort. Just like we carried trying to do a patent.
Yeah.
You have to continue to think, reorganize, reinvent. It goes on and on until you get it. But the minute you stop thinking about it, you're not going to have it. Right. And that's another part of who we are. How much time do we spend? And maybe it's because I'm older now. I don't know. But the question is, how much time do people spend on thinking about how they're being and how they want to be, as opposed to just reacting to life? Yeah. I think about it quite a bit. That's one of the reasons why I do these posts on Facebook. Yeah. If nothing else, I'm holding myself to account. And I think it's worthwhile. You see, most people don't want to be held to account. Yeah. That's one of the challenges that we have in our culture today.
Why is that? Well, I mean, I think
because our basic nature is to do what we want and not be told what to do. Yeah, that's the way I am.
But what you you said, that's the way. Yeah, I think that's where we all are in the core, right? But you're not you specifically. I'm saying in general. But you're not getting anywhere. That's like when people are not When people do not want to be held accountable, but they don't realize the mirror is painting a different picture.
Good. This is good. You made me realize something here that I wanted to share with you anyway. Okay. People are enjoying not being accountable because they believe that it's giving them a freedom to get whatever they want. You know what's missing? They're never satisfied. In other words, they can't find it. And they think that if they're not told what they're looking for, something they can't obtain because what is going on within is lacking. That's the deal. Okay? When you become satisfied with the relationship you have with the Lord and your own personal relationship with yourself, you're going to find that everything else works out really good. But one of two things is happening there when people don't want to be accountable. They're not satisfied with themselves, or they're not satisfied with whatever their spiritual conviction is. Think about it. When people aren't happy, it always starts from within. Always. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. When you choose to be unhappy about something, you're giving into that something. And you're allowing it to force your emotion.
Let's keep talking about that for a minute because I don't think it hit home yet, right?
Okay.
Because it makes sense, but I'm trying to get some more detail in my mind so I can hit the ball out the park, right? Okay. You know what I mean? So you're saying that a person that has an issue within of accountability, right? There's something lacking in their understanding.
Well, Ethan, if I can help, the question is, why don't they want to be accountable? Think about it. Why don't people want to be accountable? You know why? Because it makes them responsible. And they don't want to be responsible. You know, sad to say, but if you are unwilling to be responsible, you know, this whole culture of ours is going to implode in a big way. I could remember I said this once before to you. I don't know if we recorded it, but years ago when I was at New Life Fellowship in Grand Blanc, this guest speaker was an ex-basketball player, played pro ball. He was about 6'5". He walks out on stage. He looks at the audience, and he says, "There is a God, and it isn't you." And I thought, boy, isn't that the truth? We all think we're God. You know, we all want to be it. Well, we're not. We're not. And the minute that we're accountable, that means that we have to give in to something else. The minute that we are held to be responsible, that means that someone has control over us. People generally don't like that.
That is good discouragement.
Yes, it is.
That's
Yeah.
if you know, like certain times discouragement plays a benefit in our growth, right?
Everything does.
Yeah.
Everything does.
Certainly.
How you understand and deal with the junk or the quality, anything you want. When you take a look at life and what we're confronted with, okay? We woke up today and the question is, what are you going to do with how life is presented for you today? What are you going to do with it? And we have that opportunity every single day. You know, and then if we take a look at what is going on, we have to figure out, and this could be very complicated. And I have a hard time with recognizing purpose. Okay. I really do. When I think about, if someone asks me, Rich, what is your purpose? This is the way I know how to answer the question. It's just my answer. My purpose seems to be determined by what I'm confronted with every day and how I deal with it. So my purpose is in what I consider to be my obedience to the Lord and my concern about my own reputation. Those two things are what guides me forward. So I guess if you could say, what is my purpose? My purpose is to please Him. And I believe things come at us, and he gives us all the opportunity by what we know we're supposed to do to please him to do it. And we either do it or we don't. And we know when we're not.
Yeah. I can really vouch for that, because even the worst thing in life is to disappoint the Lord.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
And I have perfect examples in men and women that you feel that you've disappointed. Mm-hmm. And that even goes, I mean, if you've disappointed them,
yeah,
you know, when it comes to the Creator itself and you disappoint, you just like, oh my God, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I started thinking more when this conversation was going on about, and you said the accountability that is lacking is because people do not have the response, or people they don't want responsibility.
We're selfish.
That is very, very important for us to understand in our making.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm still in my mind, I'm still trying to develop a question on, I guess, how do you get people to, it's not us getting people to improve, but how do you get people to recognize what they look like when they are not responsible? You know what I mean? It's hard to tell a grown man that he is irresponsible, right? And if you do, it's embarrassing. Like to me, it's embarrassing for me to have to tell someone that they're being irresponsible.
I think, you're right. It's difficult.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, you make complete sense, because, I have adult people that, they call on me. They want my opinion. And one of the things that I've learned to do is, and this is where it's very difficult, but if you could master this art, it works. You have to have an extremely high level of self-awareness when you're dealing with that situation. Now the objective is, and this came up, this was really good. These crazy how things come up. So let me give you a situation, and I'll tell you how we handle it. I was at the chiropractor business, and they were talking about a client that comes in who smells. How do you tell the client they smell? Mm-hmm. I learned something from someone years ago, and it's really worked. So years ago, probably good, more than 10 years ago, are you familiar with DMSO? It's a liniment that they give to horses for pain. No. And you could ingest it. But when you ingest it, you smell like garlic. Now, this is the story. So I was ingesting it, and the associate pastor said to me, he didn't say you smelled. This is how he handled it. He says, Rich, sometimes when we take medications, it causes our bodies to give off a strange odor. Are you taking any medication?
Nice.
Yeah. So what that required was you had to be extremely self-aware. Yeah. You have to be thinking about, how can I deliver the message so that it's accepted and I don't ruin our relationship? Mm-hmm. That's what you do. Mm-hmm. That's what it takes. And I do that with people.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But see, you have to want to do that. Because here's the thing, what I don't want to do is I don't want to lose the opportunity to help someone in a relationship because they didn't know how to tell them something. Mm. So either don't tell them or learn how to tell them. That's what you do. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's a good, yeah.
Yeah. Because that can discouragement, that's discouraging. That definitely is on both ends.
Yeah, I guess you can use discouragement as a motivator in some sense. In other words, you talked earlier about when you hurt someone else's feelings. And was that what you used? You used the word, I can't remember the word you used, but here's what happens. When you think about hurting someone else, think about whether or not it was you being selfish or you just not being aware. And I would say that most of the times when we're disappointed and we have a regret, at least in my life, most of it has been self-oriented, meaning I was being selfish. Mm-hmm. As a father, for example, as a young father, grown-up kids, like today, my oldest boy's 57. He'll be 57 tomorrow. So imagine I was like 22 when he was born. It's like, well, how do you raise a kid? Okay. So when I look back, I realized that I could have done a better job. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you where I could have done a better job. The amount of time I spent with him. Why didn't I spend time with him? Because I was being selfish. That's just an example. And usually when there's a regret where we've hurt someone else, just take a look at whether or not we were being selfish. Yeah. Or whether or not we wanted to be spiteful. I'll show them. Let them learn the hard way. Yeah. That kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's been revealed to you in some way that you were missing the mark in some way in someone's life or whatnot. Like for instance, in your child, and I can speak to myself as well. That same example. Is that a healthy discouragement, or is that a discouragement that will take you out?
I have to answer that question with a question first.
Okay. Yeah.
What is discouragement to you? How do you understand discouragement?
I really think discouragement is, from my understanding, is kind of missing the mark.
Okay. So you missed the mark because of whatever.
Circumstance.
Okay. So there's the opportunity. Okay. With me, when I feel discouraged, it's because just similar to what you said, I didn't live up to all I could have at the moment. I failed to meet someone else's expectations that they had of me. So I got discouraged, and their expectations weren't unreasonable. Okay. So it's always like, yeah, we dropped the ball. So.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's really, when you think about how discouragement usually works, two types of discouragement. I'm growing up 2 boys, and there are times when I've been discouraged because they didn't accomplish something that they could have. So I'm feeling discouraged that I let them down when, in fact, I had really very little to do with that. So that's a discouragement that I don't know what to do about that. Okay, that's there as parents. And then there's the discouragement where we know we could have done better and we didn't, and we dropped the ball.
And I think partly that comes back around to the other part of what we were talking about with accountability, because I guess to me, when I think of discouragement, I'm thinking of either a loss of confidence or a loss of motivation to do something that you either want to have confidence or want to be motivated to do. Good. If it comes back to, like you talked about, like a healthy discouragement, to me, that's the accountability. That's the responsibility. If I do something that I probably shouldn't have been doing, and there's a consequence that I face to it, that discourages me from repeating that negative action. Right. But
nice. Probably
something I shouldn't have been doing in the first place. So that could be a healthy discouragement in that regard, or that accountability, that lesson learned that I probably shouldn't do that again.
Yeah.
Right.
The thing is
very good.
That you've learned from it and you want to grow from it.
Exactly.
And that is healthy.
Right.
It's nice that if it wouldn't have happened in the first place, but we've all been through it.
Sure.
I've all, I'll do as much as I think I have to, as opposed to all that needs to be done. Mm-hmm. What's the least I could do to get away with this? Okay?
Absolutely.
We do that. Come on. Yeah.
Right. Like brother said a long time ago, not a long time ago, just a couple weeks ago, about motivation is fleeting. It's kind of going back to what you're saying, like within that time, it's like, who are you within that process and that time? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing about discouragement. Discouragement should be temporary. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It should not be a tool that get us to a point where you give up everything.
Discouragement should be utilized as an opportunity to learn and grow.
Yes.
Okay? If I'm going to be discouraged And I don't, okay, first of all, do you want to be discouraged? And some people live in that world.
Yes.
Oh, this is the best I can do. Don't you feel sorry for me? No.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you want to use discouragement? First of all, it sure is a wake-up call, because when I become discouraged, it's because I failed to meet an expectation of either someone else or myself. Now, let's take a look at what that was. Do we want to leave it like that, or do you want to not let it reoccur? That's where the opportunity is. And the more that we don't want to be discouraged or discourage someone else, the more likely it is we're going to continue to grow and learn.
So a question, do you think the society as we know it, does it promote discouragement?
Oh, depends on what you're listening to.
Yeah.
Really, society as we know it. So I'm going to answer that question based on society as we know it, not as I know it, as we know it. Yes, it promotes discouragement in a big way. All you got to do is watch any news network. Now, here's what I realized. This came up, and I go online in the morning and I go to Fox News online just to see, did anybody attack anybody? Like I want to see generally what's happening. I want to be somewhat informed. So I look at what the headlines are and I move on. And I realize that here's what I'm doing that I'm really enjoying. I don't isolate myself from society, but I'm getting more and more closer to it. And I'll tell you what's really cool. I realize that the more attention we pay to our society, the more likely we're going to be influenced by what it is. The less attention I pay to what most of the people are doing, the more likely I'll remain who I am. So the question is, based on our society and who you want to be, what are you looking at? What are you paying attention to? Who are you listening to? Big. And one of the things that I don't think we're capable of doing this, but I've never heard anybody talk favorable about the news networks. Nobody. Why do you keep watching them?
That's so true.
Because if everybody would not watch them, you know what would happen? They'd change. The reason they're doing what they're doing, they have you.
It's a lot of money.
Oh, look here. They get advertised billions of dollars spent on a bunch of crap that's really of no value. Ridiculous.
So that goes back to your thought. Discouragement requires permission.
Exactly.
We've allowed it. We're giving it permission.
All you got to do is go to any one of those stations and they know how many people are listening and when.
Yes.
That's all the fact. So based on that, we're doing good. Look at the numbers went up.
Yeah.
So let's keep doing what we're doing.
Permission to continue.
Yeah.
Permission to continue.
Yeah. And I was realizing that one of the reasons why I feel so good all the time is I don't pay attention to a lot of that stuff. I really don't. I live in somewhat of an isolated world, and I found out it's really pretty good. It really is. There isn't anything that has happened out there that has affected the way that I want to be for who I am and my relationship with Christ. But when you listen to it, you could start getting a lot of doubt, and that's what it's doing. It's creating doubt. This goes back. Okay, so I'm unsure about my relationship with me, and I'm unsure about my spiritual conviction. Now let's turn on the news. How do you feel about it now?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it is so ridiculous that everything we don't like in this country is what we're participating in. It's all self-imposed. So what do you want to self-impose? Who you can listen to today? I told you who I listen to. And the show that I watch that I really get a lot of entertainment out of is Everybody Loves Raymond. And because of where I grew up and how I grew up in New York, that family is like my family was when I was a kid. I mean, and the other thing that I've noticed, if you ever watch the show, take a look at how good the acting is the body language, the eye-to-eye contact, the, just things they do without saying anything. Those people know how to act. Okay. And I'm thinking, wow, it's amazing what they will do with a look, I learn a lot from that kind of stuff. I mean, I look at what's working that's keeping me interested, and can I learn any of that to keep people, you know what I mean?
Well, I think you're doing it, Rich. Actually, I think you're doing it with the DISC model, of human behavior. You actually, and the thing is what's cool about these discussions to me is that we are able to get these thoughts out of our mind.
The biggest thing let me tell you how I wrote it down. I brought this with me too. This is the guidelines to the journey enhancement conversation. This is the steps. Provoke curiosity, stimulate understanding, express reasoning, acquire learning, enlighten discovery, explore possibilities, and determine transformation. That's what we do. I was realizing that if somebody asked me, what does journey enhancement do? That's what we do. There's no agenda with this. What do you want to talk about? Okay, now once something comes up, how do we provoke one another's curiosity? And then what happens is through that curiosity, we start understanding or learning to understand. And that's the whole process. To me, kindness is number one. Okay, love is the greatest. I'm getting that, but I know how to show kindness better than I know how to show love. Love is complicated. So let's just go to kindness. Respect is critical. But what's really important is understanding. When you know that I'm really wanting to understand you, what does it do to the interaction that gets created? And one of the things that was great when we were doing the training at church, we were understanding one another, the whole gang. Yeah, it was really that was a good training, not because of what I brought, but what the audience was willing to do to be transparent. Really.
I'm going back to a thought that we had earlier, right? Okay. And I was saying if you materialize discouragement, if you personify and make it into a person, so to speak.
Gorilla.
yeah. And it's not, and it's always by you. Yeah. It's constantly tapping you on the shoulder and it's saying, "Can I enter? Can I enter?" If we visualize discouragement as a person in that way, would it help us understand the power or the influence you said earlier, the influence that it has?
No, well, what you're doing that I think is clever is you're creating a visualization that would cause somebody that would heighten their level of awareness.
That's it.
And then once they do that, if they really don't like what they're seeing, will they be willing to change it? So to me, whatever it takes. Now, some people are very visual. I'm a visual person. And other people are more emotional. So when you were going through that scenario, I was thinking about, okay, now I want you to tell me how it makes you feel, how you think it makes you feel, not how you choose to feel, because you're choosing it. But if you could just say how that makes you feel, that helps us to know how to approach getting rid of it. It's like diagnosing anything. If I'm sick and I go to the doctor, and let's say that I have a really bad sore throat, and I go to the doctor and he says, "What's wrong?" And I say, "I don't feel good." Now what does he do? The next question, well, does anything bother you? Not really. Okay. How far does he have to go before he opens my mouth and takes a look? That's what we do when we avoid the things we don't want to confront. It's not a big deal. And then you dream about it. Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this is good because And I think it's good that we are visual, like me. Like you have emotional people, you have visual.
Yes.
I'm definitely a visual
Me too.
type of individual, and to really consider the example that you said about the doctor is getting to the root cause of the matter. And I think a lot of times people don't really know how to articulate the issue. They don't know how to articulate the missing element.
There's two things there. It's more, yeah, I agree that they don't know how to express it. The other is they don't want to. In other words, I'm having a problem with cheating on my wife.
Say what?
This isn't true, guys. Now, do I really want to tell you about that? Or do I just rather say, guys, I just don't feel so hot today?
Interesting.
We are sometimes more concerned about what other people are going to think when we are transparent, so that what happens is we lose the opportunity to communicate. I've talked about transparency and vulnerability in the past. I believe that when people can be willing to be transparent and vulnerable and straightforward and honest, they really capture other people. Those are things that, to me, are essential parts of understanding yourself and other people. The more vulnerable I am to other people and the more transparent, the more likely it is they'll be willing to be the same way back to me. And without transparency and vulnerability, it's not likely you could get to the root of any emotional or mental cause, in my opinion. You got to be able to allow, person has to want to really open up. Let me tell you how I really feel. Let me tell you what I'm really struggling with. And that's really hard to do because we truly are concerned about, once I tell you, how are you going to react?
Yes, agreed.
I'm willing to put it out there. Are you ready for it? Yeah.
I think it's very important for us to open up. I think, so the scripture says, resist the devil and he will flee. Yep. Right? And that's kind of how I look at discouragement, right?
Yeah.
And so when you resist the devil and he will flee, that allows the opportunity for you to express the deviation.
You have to identify him. You have to identify him before you resist him. You have to know where he is. And when we have doubt, devil's full of doubt.
Yeah.
What is he like? He likes doubt, fear, anxiety. I have a list. Here's my devil's list. Here's some of the things the devil really likes. He likes anger, anxiety, doubt, ego, fear, frustration, guilt, insecurity, procrastination, pride, and worry. Those are just a few things. Those are the things that if you have any of those attributes lying within you, we need to talk.
Yes.
Those are what I call growth obstacles. And those are just a few of them that I wrote down in a hurry. And there's so many more. There's the opportunities far outweigh the obstacles, okay? And again, I have like probably 20 of those that I wrote down. And they're all right there. What do we choose? To me, words, emotions, behaviors are all like you go through life and there's this big smorgasbord in front of us. And on the smorgasbord are acceptance, appreciation, communication, discipline, faith. This is alphabetically arranged all the way down to wisdom. And on another table is anger, anxiety, doubt. So all of that is out there. What are you going to put on your plate?
Beautiful.
It's all there. First of all, you have to know how to recognize it. And then you have to know whether or not you want to indulge. Yeah.
I have a question, and allow me to try to formulate this. And I hope all this ties in. But when you talk about, I agree, transparency and being open and stuff like that is a good thing. You can't get really the help you need unless you be transparent. Can't get the root. Now, when we talk about discouragement, I think. So how can a person be transparent? They have the desire to be transparent. They want it, right?
Yes.
Maybe they have been transparent before. But I think a lot of times, sometimes when a person is told that they want a pity party or they just complaining, or all these things, it could cause that person to close that transparency and not want to be open anymore.
Right.
Because they're being told these negative things.
Right.
And how does a person get past that to become transparent again if they feel like the discouragement is they feel like every time they open up, they're told, or they think they're going to be told, that they just want to be on have their pity party?
You ready for the answer? Find a different audience. You see, what's happening is the person that you're dealing with doesn't have the interest in you. They would rather qualify their own ignorance by belittling you. You don't need that person in your life. Find a person that really cares about you, and you're going to find a completely different reception. That's really what it takes. You know, when you think about who you can really be transparent with, you might have one or two people, not more than that. I could be transparent with Diana, my two boys, for sure. No problem there. Okay, I could be transparent with you guys. Why do I feel that way? It's because you are interested in understanding what I'm bringing out. It's not that I have anything special. It could be junk, but you're interested. So it makes it very easy for me to be transparent. When you're dealing with somebody who's going to be critical of you, you don't even want to share with them. Why waste your time? Find a different person. Even if you have to go, for example, what I did early on, that's how I got to know Miles Monroe. I don't know where I first heard him, but this guy, like, whoa, he's really special. And what I started to do when I couldn't get affirmation from the people, like in my career, Miles Monroe, Charles Stanley, Warren Bennis, what's his name? John Maxwell, what's his name? Dale Carnegie. I took the Dale Carnegie course. The other guy, Stephen Covey. These are all these like leadership guru. What I did is these are the people that are renowned for being helpful. I want to see how they feel about what I feel. And you know what I found out? I was getting a lot of affirmation. I was dealing with the wrong people. Holy crap. And when I realized that, it changed my life. If you can't find them in your community, find them professionally. Just listen to them. And it's really interesting because all of my learning is based on either learning something new or getting affirmation for what I know. It's all here. And I will not, like, for example, one of the people that I'm not crazy about, I can't remember his name, but there are people that, another guy that's controversial, Mike Murdoch. Mike Murdoch has a lot of good information, but he's a money guy. You pay $100 a month this month and we're going to get your prayers answered, son. You know, he's one of those. But you got to get rid of that and listen to the wisdom he brings. And that's the key. There's a lot of good stuff out there. You don't need bad stuff. If you see that you're getting that, move on. It's not you, it's them.